Hey, what's up, men's room? This is week 24. Our topic is fears. Fears around transitioning. For those of us, obviously, that are or planning to, what our fears have been in the past about transitioning, ongoing stuff, and how we've overcome them. What are day-to-day stuff that we still think about in terms of that. In terms of myself, obviously, there have been a couple of different things, themes that have come through in my life as fears around transitioning, and had until obviously 3 months ago delayed my decision around that. One main theme is really about legalities. Not really about whether it's legal to do it. It's perfectly legal to transition, but in terms of me not being a citizen here or a resident in this country, and being on a visa that is tied to my female identification. I can't change any of my identification right now. I don't know how to in terms of the country where where I was born, and also the country of my nationality in terms of my passport. I don't know how the process works in either of those, and haven't been successful in finding out any information. But also, I don't know how changing identification, if I were ever able to do it, would impact my my employment here, my visa here. I'm not afraid of being fired for it. I'm very, very lucky to not be worried about that. I'm more worried about the visa being pulled in terms of some weird funky thing in terms of, well, this visa was given to a particular person with female identification, yada, yada, yada. You are no longer identified as that person, so therefore you are not the person we gave the visa to. I don't know. There's a lot of screwy stuff that happens around giving these visas and these permits. So it would be testing the waters quite a bit to just do it, but I guess in part I am. So the legal aspect, the being able to stay in this country aspect, has been huge, huge, huge in terms of my fears. I haven't really overcome those fears. I still very much have them. Continues to be on my mind constantly, especially around travel. I'll be traveling actually in a couple of weeks, going to a conference in Ohio. All of these things that I do that involve local, state, federal government in any sort of way kind of makes me very, very nervous. So ongoing fears around that. I think the other two major themes are, one, family. Obviously, my decision to transition, my identity as my coming out as trans male, even my participation in a documentary a few years ago has affected my relationship with my mother and my sister. I think we are at a point where it's starting to affect it in a more of a positive way. They are starting to really see that this is who I am, and instead of recognizing this as some sort of weakness or defect or decision that I made in order to hurt them in any sort of way, they really are starting to see this is my story, this is my reality, and it comes with its set of struggles, and obstacles are in front of me, but that's my story. It doesn't make it any easier for them, but it's at least a different way that they are looking at it now. We're still working out kinks in terms of I'm still giving them plenty of leeway in terms of using my birth name and still referring to me as daughter and sister and things like that. But I'm banking on the hope that that's going to change once they interact with me more. as this transition itself progresses, and they're not going to have much of a choice after a while. While still a theme about my transition, it's not necessarily a daily thought anymore. It's just something I'm taking at its own pace and its own stride. My final fear, if you will, is really more about a topic I touched on a couple of weeks ago around male privilege. When I first was starting to come out as genderqueer, I think a lot of my internal resistance about being honest with myself, that I'm not genderqueer, that I am trans, was about the perception and messages I was getting around me that automatically gave me male privilege and put me in a very different position in life, but also the realities of some of the privileges I was going to start gaining. And being someone who has always been really active in feminist circles and around feminist-minded folk, just really into doing this work around social justice and sexism and all kinds of other isms, but obviously focusing here on sexism. It really was turning my world around in terms of I was personifying what I not necessarily was fighting against, because I wasn't really fighting against men, but about what masculinity and maleness means in this world, and the misogyny that is pervasive in our world. So a lot of things that men embody, not necessarily are, but men embody, I was becoming or taking on in many ways. So it's not a fear. It's because once you realize that something is, it just is. It's not something that you're afraid of anymore. You accept it as your reality, and you start to work with it. This is my reality. Every day I find that I hold some form of male privilege in one way or another. So while it's not necessarily a fear anymore, it's still very much something I try to think about as much as possible, and try to monitor in myself in terms of my behavior and words and language that I use. Try to be conscious about how I interact with women, how much I touch them, or what sort of space there is in between our bodies, and things like that, because that's different now. I can't interact in the same ways that I used to. It's just not okay. The expectations are different, and it is what it is. I think what it has helped me to do is figure out a space that I feel very, very, very comfortable in terms of knowing what it means to be an ally, because I was in the other camp for such a long time that I kind of, in that context, I knew what I wanted from men in terms of allies. So I try to embody that as much as possible now, and try to listen to women and figure out what they want. Obviously, different women want different things when it comes to men and as allies. So trying to piece all of that together. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Those three main themes in terms of my fears. Thanks for listening. Excited to hear about your comments.